It's more work than I thought it was going to be. I was going to show you the mount, but
It's not a big deal.
but now I'm too lazy.
It's all right. So, how have you been, Nick?
I've been good. Busy. Too busy.
Up to anything fun?
I am going back through Walking Dead.
I stopped watching that a long time ago.
Did you?
Well, I guess I shouldn't say a long time ago. I was of die. I really loved it. Season 1, 2, and probably 3.
Okay.
And then I didn't have cable anymore, so I'd watch it when it came to Netflix. And there was some really good stuff and some not so good stuff. I pretty much stopped right before Negan became a character.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a show I guess I'd like to turn back to at some point. It's just it's not super high up. I feel like at the point where the show's going, it might be smart just to. I feel like it's wrapping up soonish.
Yeah, like what are they on season 9?
Yeah, and like so many of the lead characters are leaving and everything, so it's like
Right.
I sooner than later, I have a feeling the show's going to be wrapping up or getting close to, and then it's something that me and Amanda can make our way through because she's seen like maybe 1 or 2 seasons.
Okay.
And
Negan is an incredible villain.
I've heard of that. Like I've seen clips of him and everything, so I know what he's all about, and I always liked the show, but there became a point where the show became frustrating for me.
Okay.
Just not only from a storytelling standpoint, just because the early on in the show it was exciting because like anything could happen to anyone.
Yeah.
And then it kind of had a run of like, well, we can't get rid of these characters, and then they would throw in a couple random deaths to keep the fans happy.
Yeah.
I guess.
There was the last episode I watched last night. There was like they lined up 8 people for killing, and it was like 4 people that you had never seen before, and then 4 of the characters, and they started on one end, and they're killing them one by one. I'm like, I wonder how far they'll get.
Yeah, exactly.
They had a little bit of the red shirt syndrome.
Yeah, and then a little bit of like a personal vendetta. Like, once Walking Dead became popular, like, I loved seeing horror in the popular culture. Like, I loved seeing people talking about it and everything. It was just funny because I used to work at a Halloween store right around when Walking Dead became popular, and everyone and their brother came in being like, "Oh, I can do the best zombie makeup."
Okay.
And I was like, oh, so now this is a thing. This is the new Joker. Or because it used to be everyone coming, oh, I got the best Joker makeup.
Right.
And then, like, it really took over the convention scene. Because
Yeah.
I go to a lot of horror conventions. And, like, I remember the first, it was right around season 2. That's when they're at when they're at Herschel's farm, correct?
Right. Yeah.
Which I really loved that season. A lot of people hated it because it was too slow, but that's
I loved it.
That's probably still my favorite season.
Yeah.
And I dropped my fidget spinner. I was at a convention, and like I got to like Norman Reedus was there,
Cool.
along with the other guy from Boondock Saints. I cannot think of his name right now.
Okay.
Sean Flannery, I think it is, something like that.
Yeah.
And they had people there because Boondock Saints was so popular, but like it wasn't. I could walk right up to them. Let me put it that way. Michael Rooker had probably the longest line because of his Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer and Mallrats and things like that.
Right.
And it wasn't a big deal. The next year, it really blew up, and it was like a 7-hour wait to meet Norman Reedus, and like conventions started getting taken over by like very casual fans, which is not a bad thing. It gets people going to conventions, which is cool. But the trend I noticed was a lot of people going to these conventions. Like, I remember waiting behind a guy, and he's like, yeah, I'm just here to meet Norman Reedus, and then I'm going to head out. Like, so many people just come and getting their ticket just to meet someone from The Walking Dead and then leaving.
Yeah.
And it's so much so to the point, like, they had so many lines that I am able to just walk right up to John Carpenter and say hello. John Carpenter had no line. And that just seems very askew to me. But now it's kind of going full circle, where now the Walking Dead craze has hit, or they've done so many conventions now that everyone has met them. That the last one I went to, it had like I don't watch the show anymore, so you might have to correct me on people's names. I think the guy who plays Jesus, Is that a character?
Yeah. Yep. That is a character.
He was at the convention, practically no line, and they would go over the God mic and be like, "We've got no one here. If you want to come say hi to us, we're from The Walking Dead." It's like, oh, now you guys are begging, and now it's sad again. Because at one point, it's like it's like 80s hair metal. They were once so hot and everyone wanted them. And then Nirvana came around and was like, we're still here. Come see Quiet Riot.
And then Sebastian Bach was on Gilmore Girls.
You guys are fantastic.
Yeah, pretty much. But hey, hair metal's coming back. The Motley Crue just had that movie and everything. Shit's coming full circle again.
Speaking of hair metal.
Ooh, we have a segue with hair metal.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, that music video that you shared was amazing.
Well, yeah, we're going to just talk about that right away. So,
who needs to talk about the movie?
We're talking about the music video for the movie. If you haven't read the episode description, that's impressive. But we're talking about Big Trouble in Little China. But more importantly, right now we're going to talk about the music video for Big Trouble in Little China because it's great for many reasons. One reason I love about it is John Carpenter's got an amazing baritone. Big Trouble. And you know
what a crooner.
Yeah, do you know who the other two guys are?
No.
The other guy is Nick Castle, best known as Michael Myers in the first Halloween.
Oh, that's amazing.
He also directed Major Payne, The Boy Who Could Fly, and The Last Starfighter.
I've been recruited by the Star League to defend the frontier.
Now are you ready?
This is it. Here we go.
Charge!
Wait a minute, hold on. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Michael Myers
Yup.
directed The Last Starfighter.
Yup.
I'm so happy right now.
I was hoping to get that reaction out of you.
My whole worldview. I don't know what words mean.
Whenever I go to a convention next, if Nick Castle's there, I'm gonna get you a signed Last Starfighter poster. Yeah, I've got a bunch of stuff signed from him. I've got posters, I've got pictures, I've got VHS. He's like $30, so it's like whenever I see him, he's such a nice guy. I'm like, I'll get you to sign something else.
I actually just have a Post-it signed by him, but Huey Lewis was doing an event, and one of my family members, whom I love dearly, brought both my cousin's copy of Back to the Future trilogy and my copy of Back to the Future trilogy for Huey Lewis to sign.
Amazing.
That's
amazing.
He signed my cousin's. I'm afraid you're just too darn loud, Huey Lewis. And then he was like, I'm not really supposed to be signing stuff here. So he did a little Post-it for me.
Oh, well, at least you got to post it.
I gotta post it.
I've got Jerry Only from the Misfits. I got his autograph on a piece of cardboard. I met him after the show. He jumped off the stage and started signing stuff like a true rock star. And I didn't have anything. So I was going around trying to find something, and I asked the concession stand if they had a piece of paper, and he's like, "No, but we have the cardboard from our Lipton iced tea." And I'm like, "I'll take it.
I'll take it."
And so I have that signed.
I have a buddy that met Chuck D.
Awesome.
And had him sign his head, and then he went to a tattoo shop and got Chuck D's autograph tattooed onto his head.
Well, if you're gonna have someone sign your head, you might as well fully commit.
Right. Yeah.
But no, real quick, back to the music video real quick. So yeah, that's Nick Castle, which...
Yes, that's right.
There's a fun story about them. All three of these guys were in a band together back in college. And
The Coupe de Ville?
The Coupe de Villes, that was their name then too. And John Carpenter had Nick Castle sing the majority of them singing because he thought Nick Castle had a better voice.
And was he the one that was doing the screeching?
Yep. And then the other guy is Tommy Lee Wallace. Not as big of a name, but a person I absolutely love. He's worked with John on everything. He was like the editor on Halloween and The Fog. But he's also the director of Halloween 3, Fright Night 2, and It, the original It.
Aren't you going to say hello?
Wow.
Yeah. So there's a lot of horror royalty right in that music video. All singing and dancing and cutting Big Trouble. I imagine if that's not how Big Trouble was edited, with them playing music, and I'm going to be really upset.
And the small characters coming out of the screen and slicing John Carpenter in half.
Movie magic. Movie magic.
So, if you haven't heard what our show is about today,
but yes, before you watch the movie, you have to go and watch the. This is an official music video for Big Trouble in Little China.
And it's the main theme, right? Just with lyrics thrown in.
Yeah.
Which are fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Big Trouble
in Little China. It's so good. It's so good. I don't know. Just getting to talk about this was some of the most exciting part of wanting to do this movie. I don't know if it's going to translate to the episode because I've noticed with our time doing this show, things that I find really funny that happened on the show do seem to translate. Like during the Blues Brothers episode, your Jewish mom voice, I couldn't stop.
It was a
laughing.
fan favorite.
It's a fan favorite. So occasionally we'll have to bring that back up.
and now we're here interviewing Michael's mother. Hello, Michael. Do you have clean socks, booby?
Oh, it doesn't take much to make me laugh.
Yes, Michael, I saw the movie, but really I'm concerned about your laundry situation.
Mom, go watch Gone with the Wind.
I would, but Booby, I have a lasagna in the oven.
Booby is what gets me. Booby is what gets me. Oh. I guess we should start the show.
Sip of coffee for the worker man.
Yep.
Warning! This movie podcast actually discusses movies. Be aware that it may discuss any of the following elements: endings, surprise twists, unexpected cameos, and all manner of spoilers. If this doesn't appeal to you, why listen to a movie podcast? Without further ado, please enjoy our feature presentation, The Shameless Picture Show.
Hello and welcome to another episode of The Shameless Picture Show. I love that you're laughing already. I'm Michael Viers, and with me, as always, is a very reasonable guy who's experienced some very unreasonable things.
Nick Richards.
There's so many lines.
Accurate.
There's so many good lines. I was trying to figure out what the best one to go with, and that's the one that made me laugh. On today's episode, we'll be crossing a huge entry off Nick's Shameless as we discuss a film by my favorite filmmaker, so you better run through the mystic night as we're about to discuss John Carpenter's Big Trouble in Little China. I had to make another callback to that song.
Fantastic.
Yep. Jack Burton is an average guy who drives a truck. I wrote this really late last night. I'm not proud of this one. He's loud, brash, and ready for everything, even when stuff gets weird. While visiting Little China, Jack wins a little bit of money, but before his friend Wang can pay him, he needs Jack to accompany him to the airport to pick up his fiancée. While at the airport, things get a little crazy as Wang's fiancée is kidnapped by a local street gang. The gang is taking her to Lo Pan, who needs to sacrifice the girl to break his curse and become mortal again. Jack, Wang, and a group of motley characters band together to storm Lo Pan's fortress, save the girl, and defeat the ancient wizard. Big Trouble in Little China wasn't a box office smash and is considered to be a flop for Carpenter, despite its current cult following, but it wasn't without its fans at the time. The film received a lot of positive reviews, except from Roger Ebert, that got what John Carpenter and Kurt Russell were trying to do, mixing broad comedy and kung fu together, and Jack Burton would go on to star in a collection of comic books that attempt to expand the lore. The film was written by Gary Goldman and David Z. Weinstein, with a heavy rewrite by W.D. Richter, who wrote Buckaroo Banzai.
Okay.
The film also marks the 5th collaboration between cinematographer and Dean Cundey and John Carpenter, and is also the 5th score that Carpenter and Alan Howarth composed together. The film stars Kurt Russell, Kim Cattrall, Dennis Dunn, Victor Wong, and James Hong as Lo Pan.
Cue the trailer.
This is Jack Burton in the Pork Chop Express, and I'm talking to whoever's listening out there.
It's a pretty amazing planet we live on here, and a man would have to be some kind of fool to think we're all alone in this universe.
There is a hidden world where ancient evil weaves a modern mystery.
What's going on here? Is this some kind of...
magic. The darkest magic.
They call it Little China.
Finally, we shall bring order out of chaos.
It's where Big Trouble was waiting for Jack Burton.
Who? Jack Burton. Me.
Jack!
Jack?
Jack!
They told him to go to hell.
You make one move.
And that's just where he's going.
Somebody, I don't care who, tell me what is going on.
How are you gonna spring us?
I have no idea.
There are many mysteries, many unanswerable questions, even in a life as short as yours.
My destiny rests in your capable hands.
Hey, I'll do my best.
Oh God, is this really happening?
This is gonna take Cracker Jack timing, Wang. 1, 2, 3. We may be trapped.
Total concentration.
Safety! Yeah.
You ready, Jack?
I was born ready.
Way to go, Jack.
Jack Burton's coming to rescue your summer.
Hey, what more can a guy ask for?
20th Century Fox presents Kurt Russell in John Carpenter's Big Trouble in Little China.
It's all in the reflexes.
Big Trouble. What'd you think of the movie, Nick?
Okay. This one, I have been thinking about how to answer this question.
Oh
since I
no, that's
watched
never
it.
a good way to answer.
It was fun.
Oh no.
I found it racially problematic.
Fair. I have a story about that, but fair.
And I will say, I'd like to discuss that, but I will say right off the bat, I think there are some saving graces to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not flat out, like I was, recalling, blaxploitation films and thinking, is there Asian exploitation? Is that if that's not a term already, it's a great term.
I feel like kung fu films might fall under that heading.
Yeah.
There's a whole series of Bruce Lee exploitation films called Leesploitation.
Leesploitation, okay.
Yeah.
So a tangent off of Leesploitation.
Yeah.
So yes, I found it problematic in a lot of ways, but as I said, there are some certain saving graces to that, which I'll go into. And once you filter that out with a little bit of product of its times and take it for the fun that it was intended, outside of that, I thought it was great. One of I guess in order to discuss some of these other things I'll go into, when I started to get a little more comfortable with it was when I realized how truly inept and unhelpful Kurt Russell's character was.
Yes. Because Dennis Dunn, who plays Wong, he's really the main character.
Yeah.
He's really the hero.
So there's some interesting commentary there that you can go into about, that I also appreciated how Kurt Russell's character was kind of obnoxiously like, 'cause America, 'cause freedom, which had like even better context now today. Like those things that existed then for commentary have all been amplified, so that helped make him seem sillier and even more inept.
May the wings of liberty never lose a feather.
Yes.
And then especially in the back half, in the first half of the film, I felt that there was more of the unfortunate Asian stereotypes that didn't seem to have much subtext to it, and that could be said. You could argue that that's just setting up this concept that then pays off later.
Yeah.
So that later on, when you're realizing that Kurt Russell's character is not, and when he says something and everybody who's actually accomplishing things are like, yeah, cool, we're going to go do this now, makes that feel a lot better. It is certainly not the worst offender, though watching it, like, I'd love to watch it 3 more times just to kind of help all of that racial dust that got kicked up to see where that settles.
Yeah.
Because I don't... Like, the jury's not out for me yet.
Yeah, I will say the movie does get better as the more you've seen it. Because the first time I saw the movie, too, I just didn't get it.
Yeah.
But the more I've seen it, the more it just becomes hysterical to me. But no, I was going to comment on some of the stereotypes as well. Because I was actually listening to the commentary track with it. And John Carpenter brings that up himself.
Oh, great.
And he's completely open and honest with the fact that he said he didn't think of it that way. Because he said it was his intention to make a loving tribute to kung fu films, which he grew up with, and like so much so that he wanted to do it really accurate. Well, all the best names in the business who are doing Chinese kung fu films, he had hired to be on the film. Everything from actors on screen to stunt coordinators, he wanted to be as authentic as possible. When the movie was getting made, he came under fire for a very similar thing, for these stereotypes and whatnot. And he was taken aback because he had never thought of it that way, because he's like, that wasn't my intention. I was trying to make something that's a loving tribute to this thing. And he even asked the actors, he's like, is what I'm doing, he asked the Asian American actors,
is this okay?
is what I'm doing wrong? And they're like, no, whatever. So it's like he even talks about that a little bit, where like he had to like think about like, oh, is what I'm doing offensive? And then like he even said he went through and rewrote some stuff to try to like downplay it. And I guess he said my way of thinking of it, and the reason he said at the time, whether this be right or wrong, the reason I didn't think it was a problem is because of how dumb Jack Burton was. He was an outsider. He was this white guy who just kind of got roped up into this. They're not like, come save us, Jack Burton. They're like, come and help, and he doesn't. And it's really Wang who does all the saving.
Right.
So I see both sides of it, like, and it's an interesting argument.
It reminds me of a young school child who, like a white kid who loves Martin Luther King Jr., so he like goes to school in blackface in order to do a presentation on it, where he doesn't get why that's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But like adults see that and they're like, "Ooh, buddy, ooh," you know, like with the best of intentions. And again, this was made
1985, 87,
85. Like watching that in 1985, I wouldn't have thought twice about this.
No, and same thing at the beginning. Gremlins is one of my favorite movies, but if we're going to talk about insensitivity towards Asian culture, the entire first act of the movie.
100%. Yeah. It's the same exact thing. So this is definitely an argument. This is a 2019 argument.
Put on a 1980s film. So it's yeah, I completely agree. It's one of those things that I try my best not to judge a film by today's standards.
Yeah.
Especially like when, not to say this is right, but when everyone else was essentially doing it. The one thing I guess I will give John Carpenter some credit for is, especially unlike filmmakers today who are casting white people as Asian actors, everyone who's supposed to be Asian is actually Asian.
Right.
You know, Jack Burton's not coming along doing his best John Wayne, but dressed like Fu Manchu. So it's not John Wayne playing Attila the Hun.
Tempting.
Tempting but unwise, my brother. Listen to me.
There are moments for wisdom, Jamuga, then I listen to you. And there are moments for action, then I listen to my blood. I feel this Tartar woman is for me. My blood says take her.
Right. Yeah.
Which we have talked about on the show before.
Absolutely. I remember they made a Big Trouble in Little China board game a few years back.
I need to get that.
I was doing the board game conventions really heavily then because I was promoting my game. And nobody that I had not heard any issues with them making a game, but their booth display was playing up the Asian mysticism and Orientalism and things that are inherent in the film, but a lot of people there was a lot of conversation in those conventions about the insensitivity of the booth display.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I found it interesting that was the conversation, that it wasn't that they made a game off of something that was racially problematic. They were okay with that. It was the representation of the booth, which I'm speculating here, I don't know, but it seemed to me that and this is coming from Asian board game designers and friends that I knew that were having these conversations, that the film was like put into the context of its time, but the booth display was something that was being done today.
Yeah.
You know, so that was I was interested
they could have focused
in the subtleties of that.
They could have focused on another aspect to it, or
right.
But because like I honestly get the feeling, and maybe this is me being a John Carpenter apologist, because I have said that he is my favorite filmmaker, and I will admit that even not watching it recently, I was like, oh, some of these portrayals are a little. If not, maybe not
well.
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily use the word offensive, but like a little on the nose.
I think I totally believe and agree with the loving tribute thing.
That's like, what I was gonna say. Like, I feel like he like, and this is all coming from me listening to the commentary track, but like that Kurt Russell and him talk about how much time he's spent researching.
Yeah,
but you know.
I do not.
But at the same time, he's researching the films. Not necessarily. I got the feeling that he's researching the films because that's what he's trying to recreate.
Yeah.
Over researching like the actual culture, but
totally. You know. And you know, take what I'm saying with. I hope that everybody takes what I'm saying with that understanding too. Like, I'm not bashing John. I'm not saying John Carpenter's a racist or anything. I think it is truly a product of its time. I think we're better educated today on some of these things than we were then, and I think
I do have to say I was a little worried about the commentary track when they started talking about this, because John Carpenter's heavily leftist. You know, he's a liberal. Kurt Russell's not, and they're doing this commentary track together. And it's if you ever get a chance to, it's not a great commentary track in terms of information. I swear Kurt Russell's stoned to the gills in that commentary, because he is having the best time, just laughing awesome. And giving John Carpenter. It's great to hear John Carpenter out of his shell, because he can be kind of crotchety, but Kurt Russell don't play.
Another film that I've heard some interesting discussions on, kind of the racial element, was Night of the Living Dead.
Dwayne Jones, the actor who played Ben, was very concerned, and almost the only one who was concerned about his being African American. We were going, hey, come on, man, it's 1968. We're all past all of that. Little did we know, right? When we made the first print of the movie, and we were driving it to New York to show it to potential distributors, we heard driving in the car. One of the producers, Russ Striner, and I heard the news on the radio that Martin Luther King had been assassinated. Now all of a sudden it was a black film. It became a black film. Even though when Jack Russo and I wrote the script, the character in the script, we assumed him to be white. When Dwayne agreed to play the role, we didn't change the script. The same things would have happened to him if the actor had been white. The fact that these redneck posse guys shot him, that became racial instead of just a mistaken identity, which is really what we intended. I think that's one of the reasons that people believe to this day that it's important. And in a certain way, it was a mistake.
Interesting.
With the black lead character, but without any the fact it's the same kind of vibe that I got when we discussed how in Miracle on 34th Street, how one of the main characters was a working single mom, and they never explained it or apologized for it. Mm-hmm. You know, that in Night of the Living Dead, there was a black lead character, and they never said, oh, this is the reason why we're portraying a black person in this way, nor did they apologize. It was just, okay, that's just the way it is. But they, the filmmakers didn't think anything of it.
Well, because the character wasn't written to be black.
Yeah.
Romero talks about how Dwayne Jones was the best actor he knew.
Totally. But then it started being portrayed afterwards as this this film about a black person, mm-hmm. or that it was making racial commentary or something, and Romero was like, "Oh no, that's he's just a guy, you know."
Yeah.
So that hearing some of those conversations are really interesting too.
Yeah, even if I don't necessarily agree with all of them, it's interesting to hear different points of view, because I don't know. I've always been one to I like having my point of view challenged, just because it gets me thinking. I don't know, when everyone agrees with me all the time, I get bored.
So now that we have addressed the racial issue,
let's talk about the good stuff.
Now we can go, this is a really fun movie.
It really is.
I found, let's see, where was it?
I actually took notes this week.
And I did not, because
this is exclusive for the YouTube audience. You can see, I will show you. Hold on, where's my Skype window so I can see where I'm aiming. Look how many notes I took.
Whoa!
What?
I found a quote or I heard, how do I want to word this?
If we're not backed by Dawn, call the president.
Here we go. Okay. John Carpenter has described Big Trouble in Little China as, quote, an action, adventure, comedy, kung fu, ghost story monster movie.
Is that not just the most John Carpenter description?
And it's accurate. Like
it is.
I can't.
All those elements are in it.
I cannot argue with any of that.
No.
I also really love that, like the antagonist's goal.
Yeah.
Is like totally flipped from what that typical story is.
Yeah.
This antagonist is an immortal who's trying to become mortal.
Yeah.
Instead of a mortal who's trying to become immortal.
I know. I kind of like, cause when I was rewriting the intro, I had to go back and, like I was sitting there, like I've seen this movie so many times, but what the f*** is Lopan trying? There's like, is he really trying to become mortal? Like I had to go back and double check. It's like that can't be right. Oh, it is, because I remember that line at the end. He's like, "I am mortal."
Yeah, and him becoming mortal is apparently supposed to help him take over the world.
Well, because he was cursed, like that. He was cursed to be this creature. He doesn't have a human body. The way I took it as that he could be in this form, you know, the Lopan deity. But he has to go back to this human body. I kind of got the idea that human body, that, you know, once gone, he'd be gone. So there is a time element. That's kind of the way I took it. That once he becomes mortal, his old form becomes mortal, not this human body he's stuck in.
Okay.
Maybe I'm wrong, but
they left it vague.
Vague enough.
And I don't think it's not like I'm like, okay, how does this all work? You know, it's kind of fun and interesting.
Let's break it down. Yeah.
It is not vital for appreciating this movie.
No. We talked about it a little bit. I guess this is the thing that makes me love this movie as much as I do, is just how inept Jack Burton is.
But never once loses his confidence.
No, and like I love that he's kind of got this outsider thing that he doesn't know what's going on, but like he's got this moral compass. He's like, I've got to keep helping.
Were they real?
Yeah, dressed for Lopan's wedding.
What's in the flask, egg? Magic potion?
Yeah.
Thought so. Good. What do we do? Drink it?
Yeah.
Good. I thought so.
And I love to see he never realizes how little he is helping. Like right. one of my favorite. And like in the end, he gets lucky and he actually defeats Lopan.
There's that one moment, like everything else is doing nothing, but he catches a knife, throws it, and nails him right in the head.
It's all in the reflexes.
And that, I think that moment really shows you how oblivious he is the rest of the film, because he reacts to that the same way that he reacts to doing nothing the rest of the time. Like he's not like, holy shit, I actually did it. It's like, yep. Just like always, you know.
Like I told my last wife, honey, I never drive faster than I can see. Besides, it's all in the reflexes. But no, it's great too, and like, the reason I think this character works is because of Kurt Russell, because he's an actor who's not afraid to look dumb.
Yes, yeah.
Like the moment I love, like, is in the very end when they're getting ready for this big fight scene, and he shoots up in the air and a rock knocks him out for the entire fight. Useless.
And the way he saunters with those high-waisted jeans and the super high weird boots.
The moccasins? I love the moccasins.
And he's just kind of like...
And the drug rug he wears early on in the film.
Totally.
The Pork Chop Express. And like his not necessarily a spoof, but kind of loving tribute to John Wayne through the entire damn film.
Well, you just stare that big sucker right back in the eye and you remember what old Jack Burton always says at a time like that. Have you paid your dues, Jack? Yes, sir, the check is in the mail.
Well, partner.
I just think he's such an interesting and great character because he is so oblivious. Yeah, and like just like little thing, and because you get the feeling while watching the film that, you know, Kurt Russell is completely embedded into this character, and he says it's very easy for him to do that because he grew up in the Disney system in terms of acting, where you come to set, you know the entire movie, you know all your lines, and you can just be the character because you don't ever have to think about, do I know the lines?
Oh,
you know,
right.
so like he completely embodies this character. And John Carpenter said in the commentary track that except for Captain Ron, this is his favorite Kurt Russell performance. I love the idea that John Carpenter is a fan of Captain Ron.
Right.
But like one thing I love in this movie too is like, I love that Kurt Russell's such an outsider. He doesn't really know what's going on, but never stops him. But like that everyone else will with him too. Like there's that scene where they first get into Lopan's fortress, and Jack goes, "What does that say?" And Wang goes, "Hell of boiling oil." Yeah. And she's like, "You're
really?
kidding?" He's like, "No, it says keep out."
No.
He's like, "No,
Nope.
it says keep out." And he's like, "Okay."
Well,
the wind. Oh,
how many times did character's name is Jack, right?
Yeah, Jack Burton.
How many times did Jack go, "What's going on here?"
Oh, somebody, I don't care who, tell me what is going on.
A lot.
Like he was at some points he felt like just this blank canvas for exposition. Like he was just like this way for everybody to go, "Yeah, we're kind of busy right now, but here's what's going on." Okay, now let's run around.
I know, and like some of the characters getting annoyed that they have to explain it to this guy. Like Tim Cattrall's whole point is like, why is he here?
Because he represents the white audience.
It's funny, like after the test screenings, apparently it was kind of a after the original test screenings, one of the producers watched the film and be like, "What the hell? He's terrible. He's not a hero." And it's like, yeah, that was the point. You've read the script. They're like, "We need to make him more heroic," and it's like, no.
I think I was this morning. I was on a 10 things you didn't know about Big Trouble in Little China thing, and they were talking about that.
I also love too that the film was originally written to be a Western.
Yeah, an 1890s Western.
Yes, which I could see, but I think it works so much better being contemporary.
Yeah. Where is the...
Well, right now while you're thinking too, I just want to mention one other scene that I just think is absolutely hysterical for me. It's a scene that I didn't think was funny until this watching. When they're trying to get into Lopan's fortress and they're pretending they work for the phone company and they're not wearing outfits. They just walk in holding a phone. And just like, yeah, we're here from the phone company, and just walk so fast that no one could even question, just holding a telephone.
I appreciate it too when they got through the other side. They're like, "Holy shit, I think they bought it."
I know. And they're still carrying the phone around for at least another scene.
So here's the bit that I found, and it actually makes a lot of sense, because when I was done with the film, I wondered about the opening sequence, where Ed Shen of what was the name of his taxi service, the Ed Fu Yon, or it was something
like that, yeah,
like Chinese dish. Anyway, Barry Diller felt that Jack Burton wasn't heroic enough, so after production wrapped, Carpenter went back and shot an introductory scene where Ed Shen says that Jack is a courageous man.
Yep.
Carpenter didn't necessarily want Burton to be seen as a hero. He wanted both leads to be considered the film's heroes. Okay, well, it's I think that kind of, on the surface, undercuts what me and you really like about his character. That's not to say that it couldn't work. I would love to have seen the motivation for Ed Shen to be saying that. Maybe he's trying to cover something up, or use Jack as just this, let's just let him take all the credit for saving the day so that we can, I would have loved...
They won't watch us if they think he's the hero or something.
I think that could have been an opportunity, rather than just a Band-Aid for somebody else's issue. Because I liked that he was inept. I liked that, and so if they had backed that up with an explanation that supported what me and you are liking about it, that could have been even better than not having.
Actually, and I found a perfect quote that kind of for me sums up Jack Burton in a nutshell, and it's a conversation between Jack Burton and Lopan.
I don't get this at all. I thought Lopan...
Shut up, Mr. Burton. You are not brought upon this world to get it.
Yes.
Like, that's Jack Burton.
And he doesn't, there's no like, hey, or there's no like, it's just everything moves on.
Partner? Yeah. So I think I personally think like I don't think I would enjoy this movie as much if it wasn't for Kurt Russell's performance of Jack Burton, and not even just his performance, but the way that his character was written to intentionally be inept, to pull focus from him. But like, and you can't pull focus completely because he is the star of the film. Like, they probably sold the film with Kurt Russell's name or whatever.
Right.
But like, I appreciate that he wasn't the hero.
I agree.
But he did have perfect hair. He did have perfect hair in this movie.
It was incredible.
So at this point, I'm just while we kind of figure out what topics we want to discuss next, I figured we would just kind of talk. I was just going to talk about some of the little things that I enjoyed about the film, unless you have a topic you want to move on to.
There is one thing that I'd like to talk about: the totally random, unexplained, and amazing monsters that just show up.
Right. Well, he is a wizard.
Right. And has like totally like it was a D&D dungeon crawl. Like first was it Toka or Razar from Turtles 2 that shows up? Does his eyes show up through that thing, and then the big hairy Sasquatch arm comes up?
I think it was Razar, but yeah, the effects in this movie were outstanding.
And then there was the Beholder with all the eyes. That that Lopan could talk through. I see was great. You. I think there were some other ones. There were those weird like statues with the big swords, and just like they never explained what they were or how they got there, or other than. And just,
I appreciate that they didn't too.
Yeah,
and like
totally.
You got the elementals as well.
Right. Yeah.
Thunder, rain, and lightning that just show up at one point, which is kind of cool.
I really enjoyed that he could like use his lightning as a rope to ascend out.
Yeah,
like
I'm gonna grab my lightning bolt.
Yeah,
he like rolled the lightning down like it was a fire pole. That was super cool.
Lightning away.
I love at the very end too when I think it was Thunder who like was the last surviving one. And, like, he swelled himself up super big and exploded. And, like, you just saw, like, body parts and guts fly out the corner of the screen.
There is no... Lopan is gone. There's no reason for me to... Like, no vengeance. He's like, okay, it's time to superinflate and explode.
Yeah. Oh, actually, there's a line that I wish I could remember the exact wording for that I think is my favorite line in the entire film. It's near the end when they're storming the castle.
Have fun storming the castle.
Have fun storming the castle.
Jack and Egg are talking, and he's like, is that a mystic potion? Yes, thought so. Are we gonna have to drink it? Yes, thought so. Is it gonna make us powerful? Yes, thought so.
Then I'm pretty sure he toasts to freedom or something.
Yes, and I thought that was great too. But no, it's like I appreciate that everything in this world, like, cause I personally feel like we're supposed to relate to Jack's ineptitude and not understand. Like, this is something that Egg, Wong, Gracie Law, all of them have been dealing with for a while. He's just kind of an outsider who has to come in and figure it out. And no one else bats an eyelash to these creatures, the monsters, the street gangs. And I also appreciate, too, that at the beginning, we don't know which street gang is good, which street gang is bad, because Jack doesn't know. So they're all just kind of like, well, we have to run away from all of them, partner.
It was really nice, though, that they wore those color-coordinated headbands so we knew who was on what team.
Originally, according to the commentary, the idea was for them not to have those color-coordinated headbands, so that way Jack and the audience doesn't know what's good and bad, so that way at the very end when you find out the guys he thought were bad are actually good, it's like, okay. Like they wanted to amp up that confusion even more, but it was like a producer note. It's like, no, we need to make this a little more clear. And John's like, why?
You guys don't let me do anything I want to do.
You just don't get my movie, man.
I also really enjoyed that Ed Sheeran had that like weird fire pole down to Lopan's lair, just like okay, here it was like this big door to a tiny little closet with the fire pole. It's like, well, this is how we get into his fortress. Like, he's had that in his place all this time. Like, someday I'm gonna need this.
Well, he has been trying to defeat Lopan for a while.
Yes,
I imagine he bought that location because of that.
You would think Lopan would have like not had that kind of exit out of his fortress.
Well, you know. I don't have a comeback to that.
He's been around so long. He has henchmen for this kind of thing. One of those monsters got fired over that.
Yeah. I just love, though, it just like the film has got such a like, let's throw everything against the wall and see what sticks quality to it.
What is it that his green-eyed future wife had to survive? The dance of the fire sword or whatever it was. Like, it consisted mostly of those guys just like going down the walkway, throwing their swords around strangely, and then, all right, I'm going to put it at your feet. And now let's see if they can hold onto the sword while it goes 15 feet into the air.
They survived. I will marry them both.
Ooh.
I love that, you know, Jack's motivation is extremely simple. He wants his truck back. That's it.
Well, and the double or nothing money.
Yeah. And it really threw me every time because they kept saying nothing or double. I'm like,
right.
What?
Nothing or triple.
And Jack's introduction in the movie, I just think is great with him just driving through the storm, talking to anyone who's gonna listen.
You listen to old Jack Burton here. You trust me. When you,
I think I got a quote right here from the movie is like, when some wild-eyed 8-foot-tall maniac grabs your neck, taps the back of your favorite head up against the bathroom wall and looks you crooked in the eye, and he asks if you paid your dues, you just stare at that big sucker back in the eye, and you remember what old Jack Burton always says at a time like this. Have you paid your dues, Jack? Yes, sir, the check is in the mail.
What really makes that quote is your favorite head.
Yeah, your favorite. I had to reread that. I was like, wait, is that right? Your favorite head. The check is in the mail.
Saddle up, partner.
And then like his one at the end is also pretty good too, and he's, you know, reading out the he's speaking out again into his little walkie-talkie doohickey. I don't remember what it was, but it sounded like he was kind of quoting the song. He's like, when the mystic rains are falling and the thunder comes crashing down.
And again, what I love about that is it demonstrates how like all of this incredible stuff that has happened to him has like his life, how he has viewed his life up until the beginning of this film is exactly the same as he views it now. Like that, that experience did not change him one bit. He is imbued with this undeserved confidence.
Like even at the beginning, he's talking about he's like, there's a lot of mysterious stuff in this world, and I love it. And there's a comic. They did a whole comic book series based on Jack Burton, a Big Trouble in Little China book that picks up exactly where this one left off. Okay. And they really keep that character trait going as well. There's one that I really like where throughout the comics he keeps talking about all of his ex-wives. And he's like, I remember my one ex-wife that just disappeared without a trace, and they show what happened, and she was abducted by vampires. But Jack didn't realize this, and he went to the bar where they're hanging out and goes to beat them up, and he just thinks they're a bunch of goth kids just wearing like weird clothes and whatnot. He beats them up and takes his wife back to his home, and they make love. And the next morning he gets up and he opens up the blinds, and she gets turned into dust. And he turns around and she's just gone. And he goes, and that was the last time I ever saw Exodus number 2. Doesn't realize she got turned to dust, just thinks she left.
That's amazing.
And it's like this. I kind of just love this character who's just got such confidence, but he's a Nimrod.
Right.
And like they're doing a new series now because the big trend in comic books right now is Old Man something. Old Man Logan, Old Man whatever.
Right.
So like they got Old Man Jack Burton. And it's like, well, I'm going to have to read that because I just want to know what Old Man Jack Burton's up to.
They have a Old Man Carl one from Walking Dead too.
Yeah, so it's like Old Man something is the new popular thing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, Jack.
Let's see. Music in this movie I really like too.
It's kind of got an 80s synthesizer quality that fits so well with what we're looking at.
Yeah, and it's like John Carpenter and his longtime collaborator since Halloween 2, Alan Holwarth, did it together. And there's just some really nice musical beats in here. So like there's a moment in it's a fight scene in The White Tiger that has just a really nice music to it. I wish I had it on cue. I'd play it for you.
In the end.
But actually, yeah, well, let me see if I can find it real quick so that way you can at least hear it. I doubt I'll be able to find it. But no, I really liked the music in this movie. Like, oh, here we go. Give me a second. I'll play it for you, and then it'll go into the episode, and I've got my cue then.
Woo.
But once again, I'm biased. I feel like I like what John Carpenter does so much of his music that. Hold on. Now it's getting quiet. It's just very tonally pleasing.
Yeah.
So it goes on from
nice.
there, but
yeah.
But like I said, it's I'm biased. I am.
No, it's good.
Like that's not to say there's not movies that Carpenter has done or scored that I haven't liked. There definitely are some, but I don't know. This film just seems to grow on me. First time I got to see it, it was actually kind of a great experience that I didn't quite appreciate back in high school. While my English class or whatever did something well. I don't remember exactly why we got this, but our English teachers rented out the Rosebud Theater here in Milwaukee, and we did a double feature, and we got to watch Ferris Bueller's Day Off and Big Trouble in Little China. And that was the first time I'd ever seen Big Trouble in Little China, and I guess it was not what I was expecting.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how I felt about it. It was, for the longest time, it was always like, well, I guess that's the one I don't really like from John Carpenter, but I was going off of what I thought in high school. Yeah. And not actually having rewatched it. And a couple years ago, I rebought the movie and I watched it, and I was like, I don't know how I slept on this film. It's got everything I love. It's got Kurt Russell. It's got very broad comedy. It's got kung fu over and undertones. And I said the more I've watched it, the more it just becomes really funny. Like, it's always been intended to be a comedy, but it gets funnier the more you watch it.
Yeah,
especially like when
it's so silly, but at the same time seems to take itself really seriously. Yeah, which is I think gives it a really interesting like flavor.
Yeah. And just for me, it's become extremely quotable. Just things that I say all the time. Like I love that in the elevator, Wang's like, "I've got a real positive attitude about this." I catch myself saying that every once in a while. I've got a real positive attitude about this.
It reminded me of the SNL sketch where Christopher Walken it comes out of his apartment to Tim Meadows knocking on his door, and Tim Meadows is playing a census taker. And so he's asking him these census questions, and it's like, oh, how many people live in your household? And he's like, boy, I haven't counted in a while. Like 47? And he's like, you have 47 people living in there? It's like, yeah, well, a lot of those are houseplants. He's like, oh, you don't need, and then okay, so it's just you and your wife. Yeah, I married a bobcat. And and at some point, Tim Meadows' character goes, yeah, I'm going to pretend that this is going really well.
Tim Meadows is great at that style of dry humor.
Yeah. So that's what that moment reminded. I have a real positive attitude about this.
I feel kind of invincible.
Ooh. Is that potion working?
Yeah.
I was a little worried they were all going to just start making out with each other in that elevator.
The only thing that was missing in that elevator scene was just some really cheesy elevator music.
Girl from Ipanema.
Yeah. But no, I'm glad that we got to watch this film. This is a film that thematically doesn't have a whole lot. You could you've got good versus evil. You got the basic themes that are in every movie. But in terms of something big to chew on, you don't really have that. But for me, this is a great party movie. One that you can especially someone in your life who's hasn't seen Big Trouble in Little China. It's well, you need to.
Well, and I certainly opened up our discussion on a heavy note.
Yeah, you did.
But I think on that conversation, there are things that they could have done better, but also things that they did right. And
let's talk about some of those. Let's talk about some of that.
Well, I think Jack Burton's, we kind of hit the main one, which was Jack Burton's ineptitude, being there's the white savior element to a lot of these racial issues.
Yeah.
So they have that. They could have taken out that element and it would have played more like Kung Fu Hustle or something where you're mixing the comedy and the Kung Fu.
Or like Kung Pao Enter the Fist, which...
That one I haven't seen, but by adding in the Jack Burton character, you are commenting on the white savior thing, but he is in no way the savior. So I think that's really interesting, and positive.
I also love I don't feel like Wang invited Jack because he necessarily needed Jack's help. I feel like he invited Jack because he was stalling because he didn't have the money, and then Jack got involved.
Yeah, totally.
I never get the feeling that Wang's I need your help, Jack Burton. It's more I don't have the money. How can I outrun this guy?
Oh, and even Kim Cattrall's character when they swam down into that thing and she finds a little air pocket and she's like, "Where's so and so?" Oh, there they are. Where's so and so? Boom. First off, Jack is the last one that she asks about, and then when oh, Jack, and they have that kind of moment, but then she's like, nope, get off me, quit touching me. Even the love interest thing is this it's kind of there, but it's really not.
And then at the very end, when they kind of have their moment, when she's like, or
aren't
someone's aren't you gonna kiss me? Nah.
Nope.
Yeah. And I appreciate that, and I also like the line that came before that when he was like, "After a while, everyone gets sick of me." He knows who he is. He's not going to change for no one. He's not going to change for Kim Cattrall.
Yeah. So I think there actually is some, while from a narrative perspective, there's not that deep dive stuff. I think from a social perspective, I think there's a lot to talk about, and it's not. I think I came off in the beginning seeming like it was more criticism than not, and I that wasn't my intention. I think there this movie is a great catalyst for some really interesting conversation on how race is depicted in the media and how it evolves over time.
Yeah. And it's there's also a lot to love too, and like even John Carpenter talks about like on this film that he said he even learned as himself as a filmmaker.
Right. Yeah.
So this is I don't want to misquote, but this is deeper in his career. If you give me 1 second, I'll let you know. This is his 11th film.
Yep.
And even on this film, he talks about like making dumb mistakes that he would have never thought of. Like it's the scene when Jack's on the phone, like right after the first big fight scene with the elementals, and he's talking. They're at the restaurant, and they shoot the scene all from Jack's perspective, or they shoot Jack talking on the phone and
to his insurance company.
Yeah, and then afterwards he's like, John's like, "Cool, let's move on." And Dean Kundi, who's a cinematographer, be like, "We need to shoot the other side." And he's like, "I've been doing this for 11 films, and I forgot to shoot the other side."
No, that's an intentional. You don't get my art.
Yeah, and then like he also talks about like because Kurt Russell asks him in the commentary. He's like, John, this movie's got a little different style than you normally do. Your films are normally very long and not long and meandering, but like a very deliberate style, not a lot of cutting. He's like, there's a lot going on in this film. He's like, was that intentional? Were you discovering as you were going, or do you storyboard? He's like, I storyboard. He's like, my issue with storyboards are if you stick too closely to them, your film becomes boring. He's like, I was letting the actors dictate the pace. He's like, if you were doing something. And then James Fong was doing something, I would follow those leads than sticking to like what I originally wanted to do. And he said that's something I started doing from my films onward. So it's like, oh, he's 11 films in and he's still like ready to learn.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's impressive to me.
That's awesome.
Plus, it's also this man had an amazing 11 film run. Like I'm just gonna read off the films.
Okay.
Dark Star, which was his college film. I've seen it. Not a lot of people have. It's still pretty decent. Assault on Precinct 13. Halloween. He did a TV movie called Someone's Watching Me. He did Elvis. The Fog. Escape from New York. The Thing. Christine. Starman. Big Trouble in Little China. It's like even if they weren't like critical or like monetary successes, it's like cult hit.
They all have staying power, which a lot of big successes don't. So that says a lot. What was I gonna say?
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, it's all
talking
good
about stuff. And
how dare you talk about the movie that we're talking about? I wanted to talk about the movie that we were talking about.
While you're thinking, the kung fu scenes were all really great too. Like all the fight scenes were like choreographed with a lot of love, and I also love that someone pulled out a gun. One of the first fight scenes had someone pull out a gun. I'm like, what?
Like the classic Indiana Jones
yeah.
sword whipping. Yeah, I'm just going to shoot you.
Yep.
Yeah, no, it's really enjoyable. I loved the monsters. They were ridiculous. So on your Kung Fu sequence,
Mm-hmm.
I was going to comment on that about like a lot. I have not seen a lot of Kung Fu movies. They don't.
They're
it's
not for you.
Not my kind of 10. I don't dislike them. It just doesn't speak to me all that much.
It's not what you go for. Like when you see one you like, you really enjoy it, but it's not like, ooh, Kung Fu.
Right.
It's kind of like how I am with like dramas sometimes. Like there's a lot of them I enjoy and I have fun with them. But it's not what I'm going to go for.
Right.
I got you.
Usually when I see a Kung Fu fight sequence, I'm like, I'm more critical because of like, well, why are they only attacking him one at a time? Why are they, boy, that was, and I didn't do that very often on this one. Which I think is a credit to the choreography and the cinematography, how they chose to capture it without like these glaring, like, you know, you guys, this fight could have been over like 20 minutes ago if you would have just like all come at him at the same time.
I know everything feels crisp and quick, which I
Yeah.
appreciate. Like, and then like they don't focus on a fight for too long. So like I love that scene like after Burton's been blinded by Lopan's light and like Wang like pours that dirty water into his eyes.
Here, this'll help.
And then like they're running through the scene and the fight's still happening and the elementals are still like slaying people down. But it's like they're not like, well, we need to finish this entire scene first and then go. It's like the world feels like it's moving and breathing, even if Jack and Wang
they're
are
not a part
involved,
of it.
not
Right.
part of it. And
I'm
I like
also
that.
glad that while I appreciate it within its own context, I'm glad they didn't do any like smash zooms into like crazy-eyed faces right before somebody like joined the fight. I don't think this was the right Kung Fu movie
that
for
reminds me
those
of
camera moves.
I need to find. I'm going to put a line from the commentary in because it really makes me laugh when they're having that conversation about racial insensitivity in the film.
Yeah.
Kurt Russell makes a comment that might be slightly problematic, but it really makes me laugh. Where he's like, John Carpenter was like, people were saying that the characters were the Asian American characters that I had in the film were all stereotypes, or people were asking like, where are the doctors, where are the lawyers, where are the real people? And Kurt Russell, and it's right when the scene when Lo Pan, like his eyes start glowing and like light shoots out of his mouth. He's like, yeah, Asian Americans, they're not supposed to have light shining out of their eyes. And I was like, I laughed so hard at that. Because like, I don't know if this is insensitive or not, but it's really funny that was his go-to. And it's also funny too because it's keeping him on the topic of the film.
Right.
Because at one point during this commentary, they talk for 5 minutes about their kids.
Oh.
How's Wyatt doing? Well, he's doing good. How's Cody?
That's sweet.
So you talking about that stuff just made me think again about like that comment by Kurt Russell.
All right, what else you got?
Not a whole lot. At this point, I'm just kind of like admiring the team who made Big Trouble in Little China. Like, I'm looking up Dean Koondi's cinematography. Like, how does a man go from shooting like Halloween to shooting Back to the Future in Jurassic Park?
Oh, man, there's a real all-star team on this.
Yeah, Apollo 13 he also shot. And let's not forget the biggest film Dean Koondi's ever shot, Adam Sandler's Jack and Jill. How the mighty have fallen.
You do the money film, then you do the art film.
Yep.
One for them, one for me. One for them, one for me.
And like I always got the feeling that like Dean Koondi was like went to school with John Carpenter. I didn't know for sure, but when they worked together on Halloween, Dean Koondi had already been making films since 1973.
Okay.
So it's he's been working for a while, and then then he shot most of John Carpenter's big stuff. He shot all the Back to the Future films, Hook, Death Becomes Her.
Oh, I just
Roadhouse.
watched Death Becomes Her again recently.
Death Becomes Her is so funny.
It's so ridiculous. It's amazing.
And there you got another Kurt Russell connection because Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell have been together for like ever.
Right? Was it? There's Overboard. I think there was another movie that they
just did that Santa Claus movie together.
Oh, I only watched like the first 20 minutes of that.
Well, she's got a cameo at the very end. She plays Mrs. Claus.
Oh, that's sweet. I gotta finish up that movie.
There's a scene. It's not really a spoiler because the scene's great no matter what. But there's a scene where Santa gets arrested, and he does a full-on performance of Jailhouse Rock.
I think I must have. Was that after they stole the car?
Yes.
Okay, that was where I stopped watching. So it was just before that.
Yep. So it's good stuff. Good stuff all around. Very family friendly and wholesome. But no, like I guess I don't have a whole lot more to talk about Big Trouble in Little China because it's like I'm glad that we had the discussion at the beginning because I don't know I want our conversation to be well rounded and not just an entire like I liked this this movie's great. So I appreciate that we talked about that stuff.
I had the same feeling going into this episode as I did going into our Gone with the Wind episode. Because it had similar, like, we're gonna have to, like, we can't not talk about this problematic element. And And still to this day, the Gone with the Wind episode is my favorite. I think our discussion on that, not just about the racial element, but that whole conversation I thought was really great.
Yeah,
so I was like nervous and hopeful about this episode at the same time.
It's very easy for a movie that say is problematic in a way, for people to look at it and be like, well, this movie's got nothing worth discussing.
Yeah.
It's like a couple years ago, people did that with 16 Candles. And people were like, the film's kind of homophobic and rapey. And it is. The homophobia was part of that was time period. Not saying I'm
not
forgiving
an excuse,
it because it's still shitty. And the film is extremely rapey and very uncomfortable in ways. But that's not to say that we should be like, well, this movie shouldn't exist anymore. It's like, no, the movie has its merits, yeah, and for what it did for teen comedies, and not only that, but how you can grow from it. Gone with the Wind's got a lot of problematic elements, but you can't take away what the film's done.
Yeah. And it's problematic. You don't want to do either extreme. You don't want to dismiss it entirely because of one problematic element, nor do you want to ignore that problematic element and go, well, I'm not going to deal with that part of it. So like finding that middle ground of appreciating a movie for what it is and the good that it is while still acknowledging the problematic elements and being able to sift out like artist's intention versus character versus narrative and understanding how that problematic element fits into all of those individual pieces, I think. And that's, again, one of the things that I love about these discussions that we have. And I think these kind of conversations are what should be coming out of our art, of people's art.
Yeah, and I'm also a firm believer too that if you say 16 Candles and Gone with the Wind, like, okay, this movie's not allowed. It's like book burning. Let's get rid of it. And then people are just going to make those same mistakes again. It's learning from it and finding the enjoyment that is. There's plenty of problematic in films, and if we're only going to watch the stuff that fits into our agenda, then you're never going to be pushed. You're never going to be inspired. You're going to miss out on a lot of things.
There's a lot of I found internet chatter about like The Rock wanting to redo this movie with John Carpenter.
Yeah.
I don't know how far along it is and if it'll ever happen, but I would be really interested to see what John Carpenter did with this subject matter in today's context.
Yeah, and I think The Rock could play a good Jack Burton. Or maybe if not Jack Burton, a Jack Burton-esque character.
Yeah, he has that ability to like
be lovably dumb.
I was gonna say charmingly oblivious. That's
but real quick, going back to what I was saying.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. It's removing stuff. It's like I know you're not a huge wrestling fan, but the WWE is doing something like that right now. They talked about in an interview, or it was mentioned in an interview, that their archival footage, things that they're putting up on their WWE network and things that happened in the past, they want to remove a lot of the chair shots because it's problematic. They don't want kids hitting each other with chairs. It's
right.
But then you're changing history. You're changing this stuff, and if you go back and tinker and remove stuff, then you are changing its original intent.
Yeah. It's tricky. I think kind of the closest thing to a consensus as I've seen is with all of the as a broader conversation, don't get rid of this stuff. Show it, but put it in context. Yeah. Use it as an opportunity to educate, and that is what makes sense to me.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a pretty decent way to end, Nick.
Yeah, look at us.
Yeah,
being philosophical.
And I'm going to end it with a quote from our man Jack Burton, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely. Now, in place of our episode ending,
you'll see what I'm going to do here.
Okay.
Just remember what old Jack Burton does when the earth quakes and the poison arrows fall from the sky and the pillars of heaven shake. Yeah, Jack Burton does look that I'm gonna recut this. Jack Burton just looks that big old storm right square in the eye and says, "Give me your best shot, pal, and I can take it. And if you're not down with that, I've got 2 words for you. Watch movies."